Students, let's start again with a very positive thought in mind, and that is that we'll work hard in silence. We will continue to work hard, and our success will make the noise. So, work hard in silence. Let success make the noise. Okay. So, on that note, we start two very important topics, and those are inspiration, inspiration, and expiration, okay, or inhalation and exhalation. We will be doing inspiration and expiration, and then we will be doing few questions. Some we will be doing a review whatever we have learned, larynx, pharynx, breathing and all. And then in the next class I will be doing about respiration. So next class is very important. Next lecture is very important because maximum questions are asked from this part. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can leave the other parts, but yes, it is very important because maximum questions are asked in this part, but yes, few questions are asked from these parts. So don't think that you can leave anything. You have to study all, and as I have said in my earlier video, when I have promised you that leave zoology to me, then you can just blindly trust me. Okay, so no more wasting time and starting with inspiration and expiration. I have seen that kids really get confused in the muscles involved in breathing. So I thought before starting that, I will tell you the muscles involved in breathing. Okay, so the muscles that are involved in breathing are known as intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles. Now, whenever you see the word inter, you should know that they are in between something. They are in between something. What is that something? That is our ribs. Okay, so if this is the sternum, okay, with the clavicle, that is the collarbone, and these are the ribs. Okay, these are the ribs. So the space in between these ribs has something. And what is that something? That it is the intercostal muscles. What is that? That is the intercostal muscles. There is no space as such, and they have the, and how many pairs of ribs are there? There are 12 pairs of ribs, all not directly attached to the sternum. We'll do this in a skeletal system. So now if we see any two pairs of ribs, suppose these are the two pairs of ribs, okay, so there will be some muscles like this, okay, little slanting to the anterior side, and there will be some muscles like this, okay, and there will be some muscles that are, can you feel that they are innermost, right? The innermost side, okay, innermost side. So what are these muscles, and what is why I am teaching you this in inspiration and expiration? So the first question first, what are these muscles? These are external intercostal muscle. Okay, these are external intercostal muscles that form the outer layer of muscle. These are internal intercostal muscle. and these are the innermost intercostal muscle. Costal muscle. Okay. So if we see, now you have to imagine that they are present in between all the ribs. They are present in between all the ribs. And what did I tell you? How many pairs of ribs we have? We have 12 pairs of ribs. Okay. So how many pairs of intercostal muscles we have? So how many pairs of intercostal muscles we have? Because they are present in between 12 pairs of ribs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 11 pairs of intercostal muscles. Okay. So now we know what are these intercostal muscles, because we will be coming, this word will be coming again and again in inspiration and expiration. Now you just imagine these external intercostal muscle. Okay. Intercostal muscles, just in fact, if you can imagine that it is present in all the ribs on the outside, what will happen when it will contract? What will happen when it will contract? When it will contract, think, we have these two ribs. Okay, any two ribs I am taking with the external intercostal muscles, and I am saying then when these two contract, what will happen? And it is in between all the ribs, as I told you, on both sides. It is on both the sides. When it will contract, what will happen? The ribs will move a little upward, and the volume in between will increase, and the volume in between will increase. Okay. And what will happen? Allowing lungs to expand, or allowing lungs to increase volume. Okay. Right. So this is basically what we will study in inspiration. So now you know what is the use of external intercostal muscles. And internal and innermost we'll do when we'll do expiration. Okay, let us see a diagram to understand it better. See, these are external intercostal muscles. They, as you can see, they are a little slanted towards the anterior side. Okay. And these are the internal intercostal muscles. You can see these are like this, internal. And if you can feel, they are the innermost. You can easily feel from this diagram that they are the innermost intercostal muscles. Okay. So this becomes our sternum. These become our external intercostals, then our internal intercostals, and these are our ribs, and this is the clavicle. Okay. So now let us just revise once more. Intercostal muscles are present in between ribs, correct? External, then we'll do external intercostal muscles. There are 11 pairs. They are the most superficial and they participate in inhalation. Internal intercostal muscles, they are also 11 pairs. They are internal, so they are deep to the external intercostal. And we have already said in our previous video that exhalation is not an active process. It is not an active process, and it is a passive process. And it is a passive process. It means generally no contraction of muscles is present. So that's why I have written usually during forced exhalation. Usually during forced exhalation, these internal and innermost intercostal muscles are used. It's a passive process. It's a passive process where diaphragm and external intercostal muscles relaxed. Like these were the ribs, these were the external intercostals that were contracting, okay? And so this space was increasing, and then they relax. Then they, what happened? Then they finally relax, or they come again like this, okay? Hope you are getting this. These intercostal muscles are important to understand. Okay, so we have understood external intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. Now we will come to the mechanism of breathing. So before we learn this, I am going to ask you that can you tell me, can you tell me a relation between pressure and volume? You might have learned it in physics and chemistry, right? The relationship between pressure and volume can be explained by Boyles law, can be explained by Boyles law. And what does this Boyles law actually says? It states, what does this Boyle law actually states? It states that the pressure of a gas in a closed container, is what? Is inversely proportional to the volume of the container. To the volume of the container. So we got a relationship between pressure and volume of a gas in a closed container. What does it mean? It means when the pressure increases, the volume decreases, or when the volume increases, the pressure decreases. So now this law, this Boyle's law, will be governing our mechanism of breathing. Now let us see how this Boyle's law is governing mechanism of breathing. So for that, we have to first study inspiration or inhalation. Okay, and what is inspiration or inhalation? It is breathing of atmospheric air. This is inspiration or inhalation. So now let us see what I am trying to say. I am trying to say that just before each inspiration, what is the condition? Just before each inspiration, what is the condition? The condition is that the pressure of atmosphere at sea level is 760 millimeters of mercury, and this is equal to the air pressure inside the lungs. Okay, now what happens? Just before each inspiration, the pressure of atmospheric pressure at sea level is equal to 760 millimeter of mercury, which is equal to the air pressure inside the lungs. So equal pressure, no difference, and no movement of air. No movement of air. I have assumed here that you already know that air moves from high pressure area to low pressure area. I think you already know this. That air moves from high pressure area to low pressure area. Now what will happen? Now what will happen? The external intercostal muscles, external intercostal muscle, external intercostal muscles will contract. Okay, let me just add a page over here because I will be needing more page. Okay, so what is happening that in inspiration, the external intercostal muscles, you remember external intercostal muscles, they will contract. What will happen? They will contract. And what will happen? First thing, this will happen. And second, what will happen? The diaphragm, which is actually a dome-shaped structure on which the lungs are resting, what will happen to them? They will also, this dome-shaped structure will become straight, and generally during normal inspiration, this moves down to 1 centimeter. That is called a quiet inspiration. The diaphragm moves to 1 centimeter. So what will happen? The lungs will get an area. They will, what will happen? Here, the ribs have moved up. Okay, from these two sides, because of the contraction of external intercostal muscles, the ribs have moved up, giving more area to the lungs to expand, and the diaphragm has come down around 1 centimeter in quiet inspiration. So what happens? The volume of lungs increases, right? When the volume of lungs increases, with the Boyles law, what we can deduct? We can deduct that the pressure inside lungs decreases. It decreases, and as we know that air moves from high pressure to low pressure. So what is the decrease in pressure? The atmospheric air is 760 millimeters of mercury, and now the pressure inside lungs have become 758 millimeters of mercury. So now what will happen when this will happen? The air, this trachea, this is the diaphragm that has become straight, not further anymore dome-shaped. So this will allow the lungs to expand, increase in volume, right? Increase in volume, and the air from the outside will rush inside. The air from outside will rush inside, right? So initially, Initially, what was the case? Initially, what was the case over here? In here, the case was that outside pressure was 760 and inside pressure was also, or the alveolar pressure was also 760. Now, when the external intercostal muscles contract, the volume of the lungs increases, thereby reducing the pressure inside the lungs, because we have already studied Boyles Law, and the diaphragm also goes down around 1 centimeter. And how much air will come? Okay, this goes down, volume increases, pressure inside the lungs decreases, and from it becomes 758 millimeter of mercury, and therefore the air rushes in, Okay, now how much air is coming in? How much air is coming in during normal quiet inspiration? How much air is coming in during normal quiet inspiration? It is around 500 milliliter of air comes with every inspiration. Okay, and in strenuous breathing, you have to also know one thing, that was quiet inspiration. Now I'm telling you one point about strenuous breathing. What happens during strenuous breathing? During strenuous breathing, the diaphragm that was going only 1 centimeter can go around 10 centimeter down, and which produces a pressure difference of 100 millimeter of mercury, and which allows 2 to 3 liters of air to come. Okay, so I have told you about quiet inspiration and strenuous inspiration. Okay, so now inspiration is clear. Now we are going to move to expiration. We have already seen, this is just a revision. Inspiration, it is a process of entering of air in lungs, and I've already actually told you this. So now we will do expiration. Expiration, it is the process of expelling out carbon dioxide. So we'll see how, and we'll see the muscles involved, right? So we have seen that if these are the two ribs, that are present, these are the external intercostal muscles. Now these are the internal intercostal muscles, and these are the innermost internal costal muscles. So what happens when now after inspiration, external intercostal muscles that had contracted, now these muscles will relax. The diaphragm that had from the dome shaped become to a flattened structure, that will also relax, right? And why does this happen? Because diaphragm is very elastic. Now what will happen? The volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity in which our lungs are placed. It's an air-tight chamber. This thoracic cavity is a air-tight chamber, and that's why we are applying, which law? We are applying which law? Boyles Law. That's why we are able to apply Boyles Law, because it states the inverse relationship between pressure and volume in a closed container. So now what will happen when these external intercostal muscles relax and this diaphragm relaxes, the volume of the lung, what will happen to the volume of the lung? The volume of the thoracic cavity or lung will decrease, the volume will decrease, and due to which what will happen? Due to which the pressure will increase, due to which the pressure will increase, and now the pressure inside the, now the alveolar pressure, now the alveolar pressure is 762 millimeters of mercury, and atmospheric pressure is 760, right? Air moves from an area of high pressure to low pressure, so expiration will take place. Now you have to understand one thing, that normal expiration, in normal expiration or quiet breathing, I have said it so many times, it is a passive process. It is a passive process, because did I write any contraction? No, I just wrote relax and relax. So this I was telling about normal expiration or quiet breathing. It is a passive process. Why? Because no muscular contraction. There is no muscular contraction. That's why it is a passive process. But in forceful breathing, what happens in forceful breathing? In forceful breathing, like if you're playing a flute, or any other wind instrument, what will happen? Or during exercise, what will happen during these times? What will happen? Now the role of these internal intercostal muscles come. Internal intercostal muscles come during forceful breathing, during forceful exhalation. Okay, during forceful exhalation. Now these will contract in forceful exhalation. These will contract, and which will increase the pressure, and all the things that will happen, and the air will rush out. Okay, so this is about inspiration and expiration. We will do some differences between inspiration and expiration. Let us do some differences between inspiration and expiration. So many times I have said that inspiration is an active process, and expiration is a passive process. Second point, diaphragm and external intercostal muscles contract and increase the volume of thoracic cavity, and lungs is increased. Atmospheric air rushes into the lungs, and okay, that air which is coming is poor in carbon dioxide and rich in oxygen. Okay, now the diaphragm, what happens in expiration? When I am saying, just imagine what I have told you about with all the diagrams, Boyles Law, what is all happening, that should go in your mind. The diaphragm and external intercostals relax, and that's why it's a passive. Decrease the volume of the lungs, air gushes out. The air is rich in carbon dioxide and poor in oxygen. And the pressure increases to about 762. So it goes from 762 to 760, air gushes out. Now we'll do some questions and some revision. Okay, what the first question is, What is eupnea? What is eupnea? Eu means good and or easy. Pnea means breathe. So eupnea means it is the normal pattern. It is the normal pattern of quiet breathing. Okay. What is coastal breathing? It is a pattern of shallow breathing. Okay, it is a pattern of shallow breathing. Once a question had come, they had written eupnea, they had written what is normal breathing, and they had written these eupnea, coastal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and some other options. So normal breathing, eupnea. What is diaphragmatic breathing? It is a pattern of deep breathing. It is a pattern of deep breathing. Okay. Okay. So now you understand eupnea, normal coastal breathing, shallow breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, deep breathing. So let us do some review questions. Let us do some review questions. The first question that I have made for you, using the equation PV is constant if the volume of the thoracic cavity is increasing. As we write this, we can keep this in our mind. The size of the thoracic cavity increases, the pressure inside the thoracic cavity will decrease. How do we do it? We are using the Boyles law. Okay. Now, the second question. When the pressure within the thoracic cavity increases compared to the atmospheric pressure, the air will, when the pressure within the thoracic cavity increases, what will happen? When the pressure is increasing, what is happening? In the thoracic cavity, think if the pressure is becoming 762 and the atmospheric pressure is 760, what will happen? Air will go from high to low pressure gradient, so it will exit. Using the equation PV constant, if the volume of the thoracic cavity decreases, the pressure will increase. We can keep this in mind. In other words, the size of thoracic cavity decreases, the pressure inside the thoracic cavity will increase. We have already done this in our mind. Which is an active process? Inspiration, expiration, both and none. Which is an active process? When we did differences, we said inspiration is an active process. Why? Why? Because there is contraction of muscle and contraction of muscles. And which muscles are we talking about? We're talking about, one is the diaphragm and the second is the external intercostal muscle we are talking about. Okay. Now, which muscle help in inspiration? You know. Okay. Which muscles help in exhalation or forced exhalation? So the answer is internal intercostal muscles. Okay. And that's why we say that normal exhalation is a passive process because there is no contraction of muscles, and inspiration is a active process, but forced inhalation is written so internal intercostal muscle. What is the function of pleural fluid? When we in the last lecture I told about lungs, what is the function? The first function is to reduce friction between two layers, visceral and parietal. What are these two layers? Visceral and parietal pleura. If you want to know, you can see the last lecture. And the second is, due to surface tension, these two layers stick due to surface tension. What is the exact position of thorax? Whenever I take any structure, I always tell the exact coordinate. Fifth thoracic vertebrae. Okay, these are the questions that you should know. How many pieces of cartilage make up larynx? How many pieces? 9. As I say 9, all the pieces should come in your mind. Okay, all the pieces should come in your mind. If you don't know, see the lecture on larynx. Which cartilage is a ring-like structure? Hundreds of times we said this when we are doing larynx, that cricoid is the only hyaline cartilage in larynx that is a total ring. On which cartilage is corniculate? On which cartilage corniculate cartilage is placed? So we had done on the posterior side, if we see the larynx, we had done the posterior view, then we had seen when we were doing larynx that this is the cricoid cartilage and these are the arytenoid cartilage, and on these there were corniculate cartilage. So corniculate cartilage is placed on arytenoid cartilage, which is pyramidal shaped, and there are the vocal cords and all. This is the corniculate cartilage. Where is hyoid bone? I told you hyoid bone is present just below tongue. And I had told you one more thing about it, that it does or does not. It does not articulate with any other bone. I have taken all the structures in detail. What is the portion of pharynx where internal nares open? I had when we were discussing pharynx, we had drawn this kind of a diagram. Okay, this was the tongue, palate, nasal chamber, internal nares, and what is that area of pharynx? This is the superior portion, or this is the nasopharynx. Where is cardiac notch? It is a lungs. And which lungs? Left lungs. Whenever I draw a lung, I always draw like this. So this is the cardiac notch too, so that the apex of the heart can come. Which primary bronchus is more wide and vertical? I have, when we were doing the lecture on bronchi, we had drawn, see, whenever I draw trachea, I always draw like this. The carina, cartilaginous rings. So which primary bronchus is more wide and vertical? Right. What is carina? Carina, I told you, they where the trachea divides, into right and left bronchus, right and left primary bronchus. There is this area. This is carina, and what is special about carina? It is highly sensitive area. And what does this do? Highly sensitive area, there is a strong cough reflex if some foreign particle enters. Which lung has two fissures? So both lungs have these oblique fissures, but right lung has this median fissure also. So which lung has two fissures? Right lung. You have to see the previous videos to do these review question. What happens to the diaphragm during inhalation? Diaphragm is a dome-shaped structure, and during inhalation, normal quiet inhalation, it goes down to 1 centimeter due to its elasticity and becomes like a flat structure. What is the portion of pharynx where buccal cavity opens? This is nasopharynx. This is the median portion. This is oropharynx. Okay, oro. When you read, answer should automatically come to your mind. Okay. Incomplete rings are found in which part of respiratory system? Tell me. This is the trachea with its cartilaginous rings all around it. Okay, it prevents trachea from collapsing. Incomplete rings are found in which part of respiratory system? Trachea. Which muscle covers the posterior part? Now if trachea has C-shaped ring, the trachea is passing. What is behind it? What is behind it? There is muscle. And which muscle? Trachealis muscle. Trachealis muscle. So what these C-shaped cartilage rings are doing? C-shaped cartilage rings are doing? They are preventing the trachea from not collapsing. Very good. And what is this trachealis muscle present, and why not it is full circle? Why? So that it allows esophagus, which is on the posterior side of trachea, it allows esophagus to do which movement? Peristaltic movement. I have already done all these things in very detail. What are the two functions of pleural fluid? One is so that to reduce friction, okay? And what is the other thing? The other answer is so that they stick together due to surface tension. What are the three parts of pharynx cord? Nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. You should know before I begin to write. How many terminal bronchiole present in every lung? 10. What are the main sites of gas exchange? Very easy. In lungs we did alveoli. What is the biggest cartilage in larynx? That is thyroid. Where does conducting part of respiratory system ends? It ends in the terminal bronchiole. You have to see the previous videos to understand. What happens when external intercostal muscles contract? Inspiration occurs. Inspiration occurs. Why? Because the pressure drops to 758 from 760 and air gushes in. Air gushes in. Okay. So we have done this. Now in the next lecture, I will be starting the process of respiration. This is one of the most important topics in breathing and exchange of gases from exam point of view, because most questions come from here. Most questions come from here. And why did I take the review questions? So that you can have an idea of all these structures before we start process of respiration. I hope everything is clear to you, and please study hard. Please study hard and let the success make all the noise. Okay, so this is all for today. Stay home and stay safe and continue to study. Bye.